Welcome to the LOVE Unplugged podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Frigon. You may know me from Project Love, where we focus on operational excellence, but here we go deeper. We're your go-to for raw, empowering conversations on entrepreneurship and stepping into your CEO role with love and confidence. Each week, we'll explore everything from mindset shifts, leadership, optimal wellness, to efficient systems, all within a community of visionary women like you. Ready to get real about building a business and life you love? Hit subscribe and let's start this transformative journey together. Hello, loves. Welcome to another episode of Love Unplugged. Today, I am joined by the lovely Vanessa Grutman. Vanessa is a master biohacker, health and business coach, entrepreneur, podcaster, speaker, wife, mother, and big dreamer. She is passionate about supporting high-achieving women and female entrepreneurs in reclaiming their energy and reconnecting with their true power for infinite abundance in all spheres of your life. So welcome, Vanessa. I am so excited to dive into your expertise and your journey becoming who you are today. But before we start, I would love for you to share a little bit more about you personally for those that don't know you yet.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jessica, for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Okay, well, where to begin? It's always the question, right? Well, I guess I can say that I have been in the entrepreneurship for a while. My first business was actually on the west coast of Canada in BC, where I built a network of medical aesthetic clinics for the past 12 years. So my career was at first really around skin health and anti-aging. And I got to sell that business and exited last year. Now, what's interesting is in building this 7-figure business, I really was deeply rooted in my masculine energy, my wounded masculine energy, wanting to be seen, wanting to be validated. So always doing more, hustling, going through my to-do, and really being completely disconnected with me. Interestingly, I had 2 babies along the way, and it's almost like I took absolutely no mat leave. I just pushed through. In fact, my son, he was called the director of HR. I had to let go of someone with him napping on me. We hired people with him, on the boardroom table. I was all in, hustling. And that worked really well until it didn't. And that's when I completely burnt myself out. When I sold the business, it's like I had lost my identity. I didn't know who I was, what was my purpose. It was like a big reality check, a big shock. And so I spent thousands of dollars trying to find ways to fix me so I could go back into this productivity. And that's when I discovered I really took a deep dive into the world of biohacking, and I spent so much money on all the latest things and the supplements and all the tools and all the hacks to realize that nothing was moving the needle. And so I decided to just go and heal myself. So I certified myself as an integrated health practitioner. And I just really went into this journey inwards and really started to, detox my body and get rid of all the things that weren't supposed to be there, but also just heal and reconnect with my body, with my soul, with my purpose in this lifetime. And slowly but surely, the light slowly came back, and it became more and more clear that my purpose in this life was to help women that were going through similar journeys, because we all know that the hustle, the be a good girl, don't complain, just keep doing more is the MO for our generation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here to help high achieving women who are stuck in the same patterns I was stuck in discover that they can actually tap into a life of more ease and flow without having to compromise their abundance, without having to compromise their impact. In fact, everything becomes easier. And so there's this concept of, tapping into your feminine energy and the energetics around that. So I've become a master of that and all things. And now I help women entrepreneurs in that journey. And to me, your business and yourself are both things that are alive. I really think that your business is alive also. And so your health and the quality of your healing is a direct reflection on how you're able to level up your business, because it's a codependent relationship, right? We can't really, especially in an entrepreneurship, you can't decide to, flip the switch. It's always with you. Your business is always with you. It's part of you. It has its own needs, just like you have your own. So anyway, I've learned to really craft my own method around that to help women, first of all, find their purpose, heal themselves, and then level up from that place.
I love that. I love that so much because it's so true. Like being an entrepreneur, you're always just thinking about business. The business is always there, it's always going. But as an entrepreneur, how you scale and how you grow your business isn't so much about strategy. It's all about your personal well being, your health on all different levels. And that's what you need to be focusing on, because if you are not in a good place on those levels, you're not going to be able to get to that next level of growth in your business. And a lot of people just solely focus on the strategy and they like plateau or they hit a wall and they're like unable to break through. But they forget that that side is actually going to propel them even further than
Mm-hmm.
strategy probably would. So I
Oh, for
love that you
sure.
help women with that. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Biohacking is so interesting to me. I've kind of gone a little bit down the deep rabbit hole a
Yeah.
little bit in the last little while, just because health has become such a huge focus for me. So I can't wait to dive into that. But before we talk about your expertise, I'd love to know more about your entrepreneurial journey itself. Now, did you always want to be an entrepreneur before you started your business in BC? Was that always the
Mm-hmm.
plan?
Well, I think the writing was on the wall from very early on. I still remember my first jobs, like right away wanting to, make decisions and call the shots and be a leader. And I remember that, in one of my jobs, my manager at the time was like, you can't, like, this is how we're doing things. Like, you can't always be creating new stuff or innovating. Like, this is how we've been doing it for 20 years and it works. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I felt trapped into this shoebox. And that's when I knew, but I don't think I allowed myself to really see it at the time. But it just naturally unfolded that way. And it was such an evidence it had to. Yeah. I'm not really, I'm a very creative person. And so
Mhm.
I'm not really good at like sticking to rules, and it drives me crazy. So it's better when it's my own rules and then I get to kind of do whatever I want. It tends to work out best for everybody around me also.
That's amazing. Now, as an entrepreneur, you know that you're not just focused on that zone of genius. There's so much more that comes into play. And a lot of people, this is a little bit of a shock to them when they do step into the entrepreneur role, because they're like, I didn't know I had to do that. I didn't know how to do
Mhm.
this. I don't know anything about this. Like, what am I even doing with that? Like, I'm barely spending any of my time on my, like, this creative passion that I have. Was that a shock for you? Were there areas that really kind of stumbled you along the way?
Well, I would say no, because in my previous business, that's because I was so deeply rooted in my masculine energy. I was the doer of all things, so I was a master of all of that. It's actually the other side, like allowing myself time for creation, allowing myself time for rest, seeing rest as productivity, that was a stretch for me. And so but you're right. Like a lot of people leave the 9 to 5 thinking, oh, it'll be like I'll have the freedom of time, the freedom to create, the freedom to generate the income I want. But the truth is, you still need some masculine energy. You still need some structures and discipline and consistency to be able to reach that point. But for me, I knew what I was getting myself into, and I my main issue was actually to delegate. That was my main issue because I was a bit of a control freak and perfectionist. So if it wasn't done my way, it wasn't good enough, right? So I've learned to really stop that, because if I don't delegate and if I don't trust, I can't grow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm completely stunting my growth. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's the hardest thing that I think a lot of people struggle with is they've grown their baby, as you would say,
Mhm.
to a certain point, and they're doing all the things and it's being done the way that they want. And then now they're needing to trust somebody to come in and take over certain aspects. And it's hard for them to be able to let that go and to have confidence that it's going to get done. Because, I mean, once you get to a certain point, you can't do it all by yourself anymore. Like,
No.
that's it. Like, you have to
And also
start to
you
let go.
shouldn't. You
No.
shouldn't, because at one point you also want to be able to really hone in on the things that you're awesome at, right? We're not good at everything, whether we believe it or not. Like we're not. And so really being able to zone in on what is it that you're a genius for and what is it that you generate income for, right? Because most of us, we end up spending time on like admin things and details that actually don't generate money in the business. So it's actually distracting us more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, aside from delegating being something that you learned to do, are there other lessons that you had along the way that were like big aha moments that, maybe was to do with like serving clients or, something on the financial side, but something else that really taught you a deep lesson as an entrepreneur?
Well, for me, and I'm going to speak about the coaching industry a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The coaching industry is interesting because there's a lot of people that are it's a lot of surface level copycats. And so what's important to me is to offer real services that create real transformations. And so like to me, this is the only way in this market to stand out, is to really create, your own method and figure out, what is it that you're really good at, what makes you really unique. And this is what I've learned to do. And what that gave me is the ability to be able to look forward and stop looking sideways. So stop looking at what others are doing, stop comparing myself, because I know that what I'm doing, the services I'm offering, are completely unique to my own experience, to the hardships that I've overcome, to the solutions I was able to find after encountering the problems I encountered. But that's my story, my journey, being really able to anchor that into my self-worth, my uniqueness has really allowed me, it's just liberated me and given me a lot more confidence. But I'm noticing in the coaching industry in particular that there's just this lack of integrity almost. Like it's just people are wanting to get money, but there's no real service in exchange. And at the end of the day, customer service is at the base of any business, right? It's always an exchange of something. And so if you're in the service industry, like you got to ask yourself, how can I make my service extraordinary, but also how to make it my own, how to make it unique? Because that is your gift that you have to offer to the world. It's not, a mishmash of what your mentor told you or what your coach told you, right? I see that all the time, drives me nuts. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but
Yes, it does. And I wholeheartedly agree. The online space is a very interesting, not regulated space. And
Mhm.
I think we're at a point now where I think a lot of people now are very skeptical of the online space and all the providers. And it's hurting the
Because of
ones
that.
that are actually operating out of integrity,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And hopefully it gets better, but I don't see that happening anytime soon, unfortunately.
Well, I think that's why we all have a responsibility. If you decide to have an online business, well, you got to have integrity. You got to do it for the right reasons. And you got to me, always keeping the fact that I'm in service of the people I'm helping is what is my why. It's what brings me back to why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I know that my clients can feel that. I know that they feel it. And that's why they transform, they feel supported and they feel safe and they expend at the speed of light. And that's why I have results. So I do think that the people that are doing these copycats or are not paying enough attention on the service will have a hard time this year because people are able to sift through that now. So I trust people in their power. I know that that people will have enough discernment to know, what feels right, because you'll have a different feel inside of you when you'll hear the
Exactly.
person and be like, this sounds really like, yeah, this sounds good, or feels like I've heard this a million times before, right? So
Yeah,
I trust people in
absolutely.
their power.
Yeah, I love that. Now, let's talk about your expertise. For those that are new to the whole concept of biohacking, can you please define exactly what this is? And then what are some fundamental biohacking practices that you recommend?
Well, biohacking really is the premise of, hacking your biology. So essentially doing whatever you can to increase your longevity, optimizing your health, optimizing your data. So it's a very masculine concept, and it was, the father of biohacking is Dave Asprey, and all the main biohackers are men, and there's not a lot of women. And this is where I got trapped when I spent thousands of dollars and did all the things that I did what they were doing, but it's not adapted to a woman's biology, is what I discovered. And so I'm here with a bit of a different message around biohacking, and because I'm speaking only to women in my business, my main message is that biohacking is actually about you. And this is the one missing link that nobody had told me that would have made the whole difference. Is if you're always going to try to fix yourself with external hacks, and that's kind of what biohacking is a little bit, it's like you're pouring into an empty vessel. Like there's no foundation. And so I'm always here to say, biohacking will take place. The magic of biohacking will only take place once you've reconnected with your self-worth, and you remember that you are at the center of it, and that you never were broken to begin with. There is nothing to fix about you. We're really just wanting to optimize and level up. But I can tell you, like, all of the biohacking hacks, because it's a lot of like saunas and red lights and supplements and ozone and all the things, which I do all of it. Don't get me wrong. But I do it from a solid foundation. Like I'm connected to my body. I notice the change. I listen to my body. I know when something doesn't feel right. I know when something feels right. So I'm able to better navigate into this world, is what I would say, of biohacking. So, you ask, what are some of the main biohacks? Like, to me, that is the main one, is don't start spending thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars on the latest thing, as long as you're not connected with you, as long as you haven't remembered your self-worth, as long as you don't trust yourself, because you're going to be running in circles looking for an external validation or an external answer when the answer is within.
How did you become so connected within? Like, what
Well,
was your journey to that?
first of all, I had to like find myself completely on the ground. That was through my burnout. Like, my hormones left my body. My thyroid was completely off. I couldn't wake up in the morning. I couldn't think straight. My memory, I thought I was having dementia. I couldn't remember anything. Like, everything started falling to pieces. And that was really at the root of it, was this deep disconnection. I hadn't been taking care of myself. Like, I mean, that's the thing, is I was eating healthy, I was working out, I was doing all the thing, but never for me. There was always this external goal. You know what I mean? So it was a lot of healing, like some things like breath work and journaling and meditation and going inwards and sitting with my thoughts. Like, sitting with my thoughts, feeling my feelings, like listening to what the little voice was saying instead of shutting it down and numbing it. So healing is this interesting journey where it comes in layers. It's like you have to shed these layers, and every time you've shed one, you think you're done. It's like, oh no, there's another one. And so it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does require some curiosity, and it does require some, like, a desire to almost outgrow that version of you right? Because
Mhm.
often we have, you may have this calling for more, or you may feel like, oh, gosh, there's more. Like there's more I could do. And it's almost like we have to break through this envelope to get to the next level. And that often requires letting go, shedding, seeing, feeling to be able to transcend that.
I love that. Okay.
There's
Now,
no like A, B, C, right? It's different for everybody. But, for me, meditation, journaling, breath work, even yoga, but done even like with more intention and consciousness was really, really helpful.
I love that. Like calming your nervous system. I feel like a lot of our nervous systems are
It's all
just
about
out of
that.
whack completely. And yeah, I mean, those types of things are perfect for that EFT tapping. Like, there's
Yeah,
just so much that you can do before you start getting into the intense biohacking things that,
exactly.
a lot of
Well,
people are
but
doing.
those things are the ultimate biohacks. Like one of the ultimate biohacks is your breath. Like we have the most powerful, most potent like healing device within ourselves. Why? Because this was always supposed to be like this. This was always supposed to be, Mother Nature was like, we're going to give you this powerful tool that allows you to reach higher states of consciousness, but also allows you to heal and move emotions out of your body and, break through. And so we have this within us, like it's crazy. And so it doesn't also have to cost thousands of dollars. Like that's the thing, is just utilizing our own power is the ultimate biohack to me.
It's so interesting. Like, breath is it's so easy. It's free, obviously, to do. You can just sit it and do it anywhere essentially, and it doesn't have to be this huge, intense breath work practice. As it could be a very gentle practice, but sometimes because it doesn't cost money, you don't feel like it's going to have the same impact as something that's like crazy expensive that everyone's
I
doing.
know.
You know what I mean?
I know
Like,
you don't feel as invested, but I always say, less is more, less is more, less is more. But yeah, in terms of the breath, like I know that when I started paying attention to that, I was shallow breathing like from here to here the majority of the day. I wasn't using my belly or anything like that. My diaphragm was not moving whatsoever for most of the day. And when you start realizing that, it's like, oh, okay, well, no wonder my nervous system is on edge and I'm in survival, right? I used to have this timer. I always say this because it tells you how far I've come. I used to have this timer every hour on my phone as a reminder to take 5 deep breaths, just to give you an idea. But this was a game changer for me. It really helped me. And it also allowed me to really recognize how I quickly was going back into contraction, right? Shoulders up to my ears. I stopped breathing. I was back into my head, not into my body. So this was a reminder to pull me back into more of that expansive state, more feminine energy. But yeah.
I love the timer idea. So if this is something you're struggling with and you're tuning in right now, I would highly recommend that you do that. I'm going to actually do that because the nervous system is something that I'm focused on right now in healing.
Mhm.
So hopefully that helps.
Well, yeah. And so, like, the thing is, you do it. Don't just, because you know how
Mhm.
when we have a timer, sometimes we just skip it because we're busy, we're in the middle of something. So sometimes I'd be with clients, and some clients are going to recognize themselves here, and I'd be like, okay, time to breathe. And I would just do it with them. So it became this running gag where it was like, okay, we have to breathe. And it was good because it also showed them I was walking the talk.
Yeah, practice what you preach.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about hormone health, because that is crazy important, especially for us females. What is the importance of balancing your hormones, and how does this impact your overall health?
hmm Well, it's interesting because hormone imbalance is actually not the root cause of any of their symptoms. Actually, hormone imbalance is a symptom. So, yeah, like some people are only focused on hormones, and I'm always like, well, but wait, why are your hormones out of whack? There's a reason underneath it. The hormones being imbalanced is just a way of almost like a way of your body to get your attention. And what's underneath it is usually your liver and your gut. So I will never start working on hormones right away. I never do that. I always will go into, let's look at your liver, let's look at your gut health first, because that's where hormones are made. And hormones are also like going through your liver to be able to kind of clean up the system. So if you have a congested liver, that's why we have sometimes estrogen dominance, or we start having issues like that. It's because there's a problem, like the like garbage, like the garbage truck is full. So we have to pay attention to that. So hormones are indeed important, but most importantly, they show us that there is something else happening underneath it all. And that's always how I work, is I'm not about just giving you a quick fix. So yes, you could go on a bioidentical hormone, but that doesn't address the issue underneath. So the truth is you'll have to be on this forever, for as long as you don't look at what's happening underneath. So looking at the root cause is really being like, wearing this little detective hat and being like, okay, let's figure out what happened. And what's interesting is in the root cause, often emotions, traumas, are intertwined in there, because especially for high achieving women, we haven't allowed ourselves to feel things like anger, right? Because we've been told we have to be a good girl, don't cry, don't be mad, it's okay. So here we are going around with this big ball of unprocessed anger in our body, which, by the way, gets stored into the liver. And so we can start making connections here, right? It's all interconnected. And so hormones are important. Of course they are. But one thing I know for sure is when we start addressing the other things, hormones will go back to where they're supposed to be, because the body always wants to be in a state of balance. We just have to get out of the way. And we have to start trusting the body again. Like, so many women actually hate their bodies. So many women think that their bodies is doing everything wrong. Oh, well, now my hormones are down the drain, and like, oh, what's happening now? And I'm gaining all this weight, of course, right? So we're very negative for the most part when we're talking about our body. And I had to really start seeing and having almost more compassion towards my own body for everything it was doing behind the scenes. And as I started healing and detoxing and getting rid of parasites and candida and heavy metals and all the things, I